Welcome back. Hello, hello. Oh, I heard a hello over here. This is a group that's listening. Oh, it's Jenny from the Boulder Company. Big surprise.
You just need to do the clap twice, Gretchen.
I did that. Did you see? I did clap once if you hear me yesterday, and
I
the whole room
did.
clapped
The whole room
once.
went
I
like
felt
that.
so powerful. It was
You
amazing.
are powerful.
Highlight for me. Well, welcome back.
Welcome.
Welcome back. I hope you all have enjoyed your day today. And as we close out this inspiring and informative and action-oriented Women in Manufacturing Leadership Conference, I am so pleased to be here to announce our final session. We are ending on a high note as we introduce a technology-driven approach to frontline workforce management. So leading the session this afternoon is Rahil Siddiqui, founder and CEO of WiM, which is a global manufacturing HR leader. He has 14 years of experience in HR strategy, factory operations, and workforce transformation. He's joined by Mary Schlusser, HR manager at Vitro Architectural Glass, who will share an insider's perspective on implementing a skills matrix to enhance workforce flexibility. Please join me in welcoming Rahil and Mary.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a quick sound check. All good? Excellent. Thanks. So, appreciate that kind introduction, Gretchen. My name is Rahil Siddiqui. I am the founder and CEO of WiM. And starting with the bottom line up front, we're going to talk about what skills and the good old skills matrix, how that aligns with flexibility. So I have the good fortune of following some really good discussions around flexibility earlier in the day. So I may reference a few of those nuggets that we heard this morning and as well as this afternoon. So there's many different ways we get to define flexibility and some of the challenges that we are all dealing with as manufacturers. I think we heard very abundantly clearly yesterday with all the uncertainty in the world of manufacturing with tariffs, with changes in the approach around immigration that this country is going to take. And with all of that said, it brings back echoes of 2 or 3 years ago as we all lived through that great resignation period. Today, we'll sort of stay focused around call-offs, right? And just to define the problem statement a little bit more focused, we're talking about call-offs here, but we've all been through this moment, right? You show up in the morning and that production line cannot work, or we can't meet those numbers because we don't have enough trained, qualified, skilled people to help us out. And of course, the National Association of Manufacturers, as well as Deloitte, I think, put that number out. By 2030, we're talking about well over 2 million jobs going unfilled because people no longer want to work in factories. So maybe I'll take a step back and introduce myself a little bit as well, and then jump into our topic here. So I'm a recovering HR guy, as you heard from Gretchen. Did HR in and around the factory floor for over a decade. And the last role I held, I was the HR guy to the chief operating officer of a $16 billion global manufacturer. So in that role, I had the good fortune of having visibility to well over 100 factories and warehouses around the world. I saw the good, the bad, the ugly. I worked for this company for over a decade. I definitely loved where I worked, enjoyed my job, diversity, inclusion, engagement. We walked the walk, talked the talk, all that good stuff. And then one fine day, I happened to read one line in one CNN article, and a week later, I had gone and quit that job. So this is what makes WiM so special for me. And that one line in that CNN article was essentially written about the depths of the Great Resignation. The labor markets are crazy right now. Things are going bonkers. But millions of more women are expected to leave the workforce in the coming months due to a lack of flexibility in their jobs. And in that role, at that point in time, this hit me like a brick in the face. I sat there scratching my head wondering, what does flexibility mean for that frontline worker? And mind you, we were also a company that was determined to be, an essential manufacturer. So while I had the luxury of sitting at home, being in this global HR role, those frontline folks were showing up every day. And then the conversation was starting to shift about hybrid versus remote versus in-person. And I'm still sitting there thinking, what does flexibility mean for that frontline worker? So what we hope to present to you with Mary and myself is one sort of way of thinking about flexibility, and being very tactical, leaving you with something that is very concrete, usable, with technology or without, right? So technology and software doesn't solve problems that we deal with on the factory floor. It helps, but it's going to behoove all of us as manufacturing leaders to go and influence within our own spheres of influence. You may have influence over multiple sites that you work with, or within one department, or within one team, right? But we all have influence. So what we hope to do at the end of this session is for you to drive this conversation forward. We'll end with a small 2 or 3 minute survey with a QR code. So I'll also call that out at the end. So with that said, traditional workforce management is sort of broken. I think we all feel that. When I started WILIA about 4 years ago, I lived in a town called Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Anyone knows where that is? All right, so some South Central PA people. So look, Mechanicsburg is sort of the middle of the country, not one of the coastal elites, et cetera, right? So where I lived, nobody was taking Uber rides coming pre-pandemic, right? Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, this wasn't a thing. But guess what happened during the lockdowns in the pandemic, right? We started getting familiar with ordering groceries because we didn't want to go home. So we started becoming familiar with ordering lunches and dinners, et cetera, right? So suddenly, when this moment of insight happened for me, I furiously went researching, and it turned out, while I was getting beat up to go find more people to work in our factories and warehouses, there was a wait list of people waiting to drive for DoorDash. How could this be? How do we, as manufacturers, learn something from the gig economy? And mind you, that Uber has been here for well over a decade, right? So now, let me state the obvious. Gig workforce for factories is a horrible idea, right? At best, you're breaking something. At worst, you're killing someone. So that will not work. But what we're doing today, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, forced overtime, that is not the way of the future either. So where do we go? So though we don't have all the questions. I think Melissa said it well earlier. We don't have a flexibility magic wand, but we don't have the option of continuing to do what Henry Ford popularized in September of 1926, by the way. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So we're coming up to 100 years. It's about time we figure out what comes next. So I won't belabor that point. As a quick update on our journey as a startup, we've been working with some of the biggest manufacturers out there. I won't go through all the numbers, but one bit I will call out. When we have worked with large manufacturers and talked about, hey, what would a flexible workforce look like? What do part-time work options look like? And how do we let people pick and choose work, et cetera, et cetera? If you remember nothing else, one thing that I will leave you with is we consistently see where we have the option of providing part-time work options, we see 3x to 10x more candidates wanting to take those jobs compared to full-time roles, right? So that's one big data point that we validated over and over and over. So when we think about flexibility, and now I want to gently transition us into the crux of how we bring skills and flexibility together. Yes, we heard some really good examples through today. I think Frederica from Howmet also talked about they've explored some part-time options, right? We heard from Melissa, Mazda Toyota, about, hey, we let people now work their way out of some points that they may have for whatever reason, ended up with from an attendance point standpoint. So we're trying to put a little bit more control back in the hands of our frontline team members. So from that standpoint, we've been researching this area. We've been talking to dozens, if not hundreds of manufacturers, going to lots and lots of factories. And we've built over the last few years a thesis around what does flexibility mean for that frontline worker, right? And so I'm happy to share with you, it actually comes down to three very simple things, right? So when do I work? How much do I work? And what do I work on? So when do I work? We all know the challenges of shift work. We've all dealt with rotating shifts, DuPont, what have you, et cetera, right? And there's, the good news is we're pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Thankfully, we have technology solutions now that are enabling some shift swapping, et cetera, type of options. But there's a lot more we can do there. Very consistently, I hear about, it's a little bit pejorative, but I'm sure you've heard about this too, the mommy shift. Start at 10, be done by 2, right? Drop the kids, and then be home again to pick them up. And so that sort of, all those options kind of go under the when do I get to work, right? And then how much do I want to work on? And this is the parts that I really like what Frederica and Melissa mentioned this afternoon. So if I've accumulated some points for various reasons, can I work out of them? Right? Do I have the option of going and sort of undoing some of those challenges that I went through for various personal reasons? Do we have a workforce model that accommodates part-time and full-time options, et cetera, right? We've certainly run into some companies in our journeys where philosophically they are simply against part-time work. I think that will change as we continue to work through some of the challenges here. And that tends to also be the case with some unionized employers, right? Where we have a CBA, we tend to have some challenges around part-time work. My prediction, for whatever that's worth, is unions will also continue to evolve with the new landscape of work. The new future of work is truly flexible. I think we all know that in our guts, but it's going to take a little bit of time. This is an industry that is sort of steeped in history, and it will not change on a dime. So the how much I work bit will certainly be an important one for all of us to consider, right? And then now we get into the cross-skilling part. So what do I work on? Do I have a say? Do I have visibility into my skills matrix? Or is that sitting in an Excel sheet on somebody's desktop that hasn't really been dusted off in a while, right? So do I have the ability to influence what happens on that skills matrix and then be able to pick and choose what I may want to work on? So these are conversations that we've not historically had in manufacturing. We've done a phenomenal job of talking about a skills matrix. I think it's fair to say most of you have a skills matrix that you've dealt with at some point on the production floor. It remains to be seen how sort of it gets operationalized. So that's the key part that I don't want to steal from Mary's thunder. So I'll leave you with this idea of, as you take in this definition of what flexibility looks like for the frontline worker, I submit to you the thesis that we hang our hat on, which is for flexible work options to be sustainable and scalable into this new future of work, they have to be built on a foundation of skills, right? So I'll say that again. For flexible work options on the front lines of our factories to be scalable and sustainable, they have to be built on the foundation of skills. So what does that mean? Very simple example. Instead of sitting here and lamenting, hey, I wish I had 4 extra people in the warehouse this coming weekend, I should be able to say something like, I need 2 people who can do picking and packing, 1 who's certified on that ERP, and 1 who has a forklift license. You've suddenly dramatically changed the odds of finding that extra latent capacity within your own existing labor force, right? So flexibility and skills are deeply interrelated, and Mary, I'll ask you to come and talk about your journey at Vitro. Thank you.
Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Schlusser, and I am the HR manager for Vitro Architectural Glass. I've worked in manufacturing HR for over 15 years, and I'm excited to be here with you today. So let me tell you a little bit about our factory setting. So Vitro is a 2-line float glass operation. We're a 53-year-old facility, so it was built by PPG 53 years ago. Very old school, I'll call it that way. It was built in South Central Pennsylvania, not far from Mechanicsburg and Carlisle, and it was built because it was surrounded by farm fields, and so this was an opportunity for more workforce. So we have a 4-crew rotating operation. They work 12-hour schedules, which is very challenging. If you know anything about a glass, once a furnace starts, it's going to run for 10 to 15 years without shutting off ever. I see somebody shaking their head down there. They know that operation well. So it's challenging. So we had over 400 employees at our facility, and just like many of you, we were short on workers. So today I'm going to talk to you about the journey we have been on at Vitro, laying the foundation to create opportunity for a flexible workforce. So some of the challenges that we face: we were managing 188 unique skills across 245 employees in 5 departments. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Sorry, my fault. And how many of you have skills matrix in here? Okay. Are they up to date? Real life? Up to date. Who have access to them? Do our supervisors have access to them? Right? So whenever you have a call off, somebody has access to that file, right? Because it's a nightmare to backfill those vacancies, right? So it can be very challenging. We need to know who's trained, who can come in and fill those positions. This is also leading to so much forced overtime because our supervisors are calling people in that we know are qualified, right? Because there's not any documentation that says that they're qualified to do that job. So for us, we had to find a change. We needed to do something different. So we needed real-time visibility into the skills of our workforce, and that's when we partnered with WiM. So let me talk to you about the transformation. So since implementing a skills-based model, we've reduced overtime and improved our voluntary OT participation. We've had over 12,000 hours completed in voluntary overtime in 7 months. Our supervisors have instant access to worker availability and to skills. Our employees have access and can control their own career paths through an app. And now we have cross-trained workers. They can bring it to our attention that they're interested in getting cross-trained. And quite frankly, our workers didn't even know those opportunities existed prior to bringing WiM in there. So we've implemented this program with all of our full-time workers, and now we're looking at even more ways to create flexibility, like partial shift acceptance and a flex worker program. So we've laid the foundation to be able to implement both of those within our plant. So why a flex worker pool? A flex worker pool helps manufacturers retain the talent, optimize coverage, and reduce cost. So we have to reduce full-time worker fatigue. Let's face it, our full-time workers, they're tired. They're tired because they don't have a work-life balance. And so we need to create an opportunity for them to take a break. Lower OT costs. But what other costs are we looking at lowering as well? We're lowering our turnover costs because our full-time workers are looking for other opportunities because they're exhausted. During those chaotic peak times, what do? We're forcing our full-time workers even more, and so they're even more exhausted. So during that peak time, if you have a flexible pool, you can bring those workers in to help offset that work. And then retaining a different group of workers. How many employees right now are retiring? They're retiring saying, I don't want to work night shifts. I don't want to work 60 hours, but I want to work part-time. Maybe I'll go work at Lowe's or Home Depot. What if we had that opportunity as a flex pool that they could join that, and so they can come back in and work within our plant? And they bring that knowledge back so they can help train our new hires. And what about those people that life changes for them? Become a new mom, a new parent, and I want to work, but I can't fulfill the 40-hour work week like you're asking me to. And then also creating a new talent pipeline. What about those people who will come in as a part-time worker and in 5 years from now say, you know what, I want a full-time job, and now I'm going to come work for Vitro. So I'm sure many of you are trying to figure out within your organization how this is going to work for you. But this is the story that Vitro has been on. And we're looking forward to creating this flex pool to help our workers. So I'm going to turn it back over to Rahil.
Thank you. Thank you. You can stay here, so I'll invite some. Thanks, Mary. So, as I promised, we have a little QR code here. I'll invite you to bring your phones out and scan this. It should take you 2 to 3 minutes, really. So we'll give you a little bit of time to go through it. The intent of this, again, not a magic wand, right? But it allows you to get a conversation going within your organizations. We are all on a journey of figuring out what flexible work options look like in our own factories. Every factory is unique within your own network as well. So hopefully this 3-minute questionnaire gives you a little bit of an idea of the types of conversations that you could be having within your organization. So we'll pause here for a couple minutes while you have a chance to get through that. And also, if you prefer, we recently partnered with the conference board, and they did a fantastic white paper on how we define flexible work options on the front lines, and I'm happy to share that with you after the conference as well. And at this point, as some of you complete that questionnaire, I'll open it up for some Q&A with Mary. And Mary, one bit that we did not fully describe as we talked about flex work is what is a flex work pool. And so maybe I'll take 20 seconds to talk about what that is. These are essentially your part-time employees who don't have a set schedule, and they're able to pick and choose when, how much, and what they work on, right? So going back to that thesis, what does that new future of work look like? It's massively more flexible, but we have to get started slowly. Some of you will feel familiar with that idea of, again, pejorative term, floaters or utilities, right? We have these full-time positions in some of our factories, but now we're pushing that forward. Another way to think about it is something that manufacturing used to do 3 or 4 decades ago, job share. How many remember what job sharing is? Anyone here? Yeah. So think about this. What we're describing is essentially job sharing on steroids now, right? So it's the technology's here. We can make it happen. And I'll pause here now and see if you have any questions that Mary or I can answer for you. Yes.
I know some of the hesitation, even within my own company, is the cost of having 2 part-time employees versus 1, as far as when it goes to benefits, and that's really a sticking point.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that Tony from Tutris also mentioned today. When you do that cost-benefit analysis, take into account what's happening when you have that revolving door of people who are quitting and leaving versus having those 2 part-time employees. Some of the large companies that we are working with, like Caterpillar and Volvo, they are looking at part-timers under the context of the ACA, where until a certain number of hours, you're not eligible for benefits, right? And so the benefits cost actually goes away in those contexts. So the net math actually works out more favorable. I can talk a little bit more about that, but Mary, if you have anything to add to that.
So we were looking at the same type of issues, but whenever we talk about the number of hours that we limited people to, or those workers to, we don't have to provide benefits for them. And a lot of our flexible or part-time workers are not looking for benefits, actually. When you think about the retirees, or if you have maybe the generation that's still on their parents' benefits, which we're finding that as well, that 26-year-olds who are kind of working different part-time jobs, we see them as a pool of candidates as well.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
So what happens if nobody selects a part of that shift or that specific cell that needs coverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Lots of operations people in the room here, and we get this question quite frequently within the world of HR. And anytime there's an ops leader around, they tend to squash that question out. We figured it out. What do we do today? We don't have people to provide coverage on our lines today, right? So ops leaders, got tremendous respect for them. You, as an HR person, you love them, you hate them, they're your best frenemies, but they make it work, right? So that's when you're looking at those forced overtime options. You're looking at your temp agencies. You have a number of tools in your toolkit, right? So